Greetings, YouTube. The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And today we are going to be talking about the 2024 version of Ray of Enfeeblement. I've got the Legacy version up here right now. We're going to compare and contrast these two versions of the spell. Yes, Ray of Enfeeblement did get a pretty substantial buff. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what classes and class elements go good with this spell. We're also going to dive a little bit deep into the inner workings and mechanics of this spell. But first, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or a comment. And don't forget to hit that notification bell. All right. Here is the original version of Ray of Enfeeblement. Back in the day when we originally did this one, we gave it a B-. So, second level spell, one action, 60-foot range, which is okay. Verbal and somatic components. It lasted for a minute. It required concentration. It was a necromancy spell, and it was a con save. Con saves are not my favorite saves in the game. And it counted as a debuff. It was usable by warlocks, wizards, death domain clerics, and grave domain clerics. We're not going to talk about blood domain or ill rigor, because those are third-party publishers. So, a black beam springs from your hand towards a creature within range. You made an attack roll, a ranged spell attack against the target. When you hit them, the target deals only half damage with weapon attacks. So I don't think that really counts as unarmed attacks, but weapon attacks that use strength until the spell ends. So, natural weapons like bite attacks and things like that, claw attacks, those almost always use strength. So, I would say that those counted. At the end of each of the target's turns, it made a Constitution saving against the spell. On a success, the spell ended. Constitution was pretty easy to make. Strength is probably the easiest one to make. Constitution was the second easiest to make. Followed by Dex, followed by Wisdom, followed by Charisma, followed by Intelligence. So, on average, with almost all opponents. So, we gave this one a B-. It was pretty good, half damage, and it usually lasted for a couple of rounds, but that's really all you need it to last for, because that's usually how long combats last. Now, here is the new version. It is still a second level spell. It is still one action, still a range of 60 feet, still has verbal and somatic components. Still usable by warlocks, wizards, death domain clerics, which they put in the DMG, and then grave domain from Xanthar's Guide to Everything. We're not going to talk about the ill rigor. Okay, still lasts for a minute. It's still concentration, still necromancy spell, still a con save. So, a beam of an enervating energy shoots to a creature within range, toward a creature within range. So, one thing I don't see in this is a black beam from your finger toward a creature within range. It doesn't say you need to see them, but this was a ranged spell attack, so you don't need to see them. You would just have disadvantage. This one now says it's not a ranged spell attack anymore. The target must make a con save. So if you can't see them, but you know that they're there, I don't know how that is going to go down, but it doesn't say toward a creature you can see within range. It just says toward a creature within range. So on a successful save, just flat out, the target has disadvantage on the next attack roll it makes until the start of your next turn. So there is a penalty for making that saving throw. So it's not just, I made my save and I'm done. So that is a little bit of a bump. Then, on a failed save, the target has disadvantage on strength-based D20 tests for the duration. Okay, we're going to dive into that a little bit. And then during that time, it also subtracts 1d8 from all its damage rolls. So it no longer does half damage, but it is subtracting a little bit damage. And then it gets to repeat the save at the end of its turns, ending the spell on a success. Now, what does that mean? D20 tests. Well, that means it encompasses 3 main D20 rolls of the game. All ability checks, all attack rolls, and all saving throws that have to do with strength. All 3 of those. So it has disadvantage on strength ability checks, meaning to escape a grapple of some kind, if that is its best thing. Otherwise, it's going to have to use acrobatics. It has disadvantage on strength-based attack rolls. So that's anything that's based off of strength, weapon roll, unarmed strike, whatever, claw, bite, tail, whatever. And it has disadvantage on strength saving throws, which is a big deal because strength, again, like I said, strength is usually the easiest thing that opponents or players can save. Giving them disadvantage is a big deal, and it applies to a lot of different stuff. So it applies to that first initial grapple. So when you do your grapple, the target has to make a strength saving throw. Now it is doing it at disadvantage. It also applies to a whole bunch of spells. There's a whole bunch of stuff that fighters can do against an opponent that require a strength saving throw. And there's a whole bunch of things that a monk can do that requires a strength saving throw. And there's a whole bunch of spells that are nasty if the targeted creature fails their strength saving throw. So that is the big bump to this, is this thing right here. It is no longer just half damage. It is disadvantage on all of these checks. So the one thing I don't like about this is it's still limited to warlocks and wizards, and a little bit to a cleric. And before we get into that, let's go ahead. We're going to bump this up to a B+. I like these kind of control-y debuff spells. Now, it's a saving throw, and it's a con saving throw, and there are ways to get around that. If you happen to have levels in Bard, then you can be a Bard of Eloquence, and you can hit them with your subtraction to saving throws. That kind of thing. Now, for wizards, I mean, it sounds like, and again, this is a thing I don't understand. It says School of Necromancy is legacy, but if we go, and this is a sidebar, by the way, if we go over to classes and we go to the wizard, and we go to the subclasses under the wizard for 2024, there are only 4 subclasses here, and necromancy is not one of them. So if we go to wizard subclasses, a wizard subclass is a specialization that grants you a feature at certain wizard's level as specified in the subclass. Necromancy is not in here, so it's not really a subclass per se. So let's go back to that. It's way down here now, so we'll go back here. It's not really legacy because there is not a replacement for it. So there's this Grim Harvest thing. Once per turn, when you kill one or more creatures with a spell of first level or higher, you regain hit points equal. And Ray of Enfeeblement's not going to take anybody down. So you're not really doing damage. It's a debuff spell. So these things don't really have anything to do with that. Now, is there anything in the base wizard that will help us with this spell? Not really. The base wizard has spell casting. They have Ritual Adept. They have Arcane Recovery. They're a Scholar. They have their Wizard subclass. They have Memorized Spell. So that's basically it. Now, the Diviner is probably better because they get Portent, and they can roll 2 20s. They can record the numbers, and so if those are low numbers, I can replace any D20 test, including a saving throw, that initial saving throw. If you miss that saving throw, then you are subject to the Ray of Enfeeblement, meaning you are at disadvantage for all these D20 checks. Your other party members, because D&D is a team game, your other party members need to know that you have this spell and that when you use it, they need to be ready to take advantage of this disadvantage on strength-based D20 checks. So you kind of need to look at the other party members and say, who's got strength stuff? Who's got things that are going to affect or trigger a strength saving throw? But the Portent Wizard is probably the best one. The Warlock, there's not really... it kind of goes with the Fiend or the Great Old One. But the Warlock doesn't really have anything either that kind of bumps this spell up or does anything to this spell. they could take it as a pack magic. The cleric also doesn't really have anything. The death domain cleric's got the Reaper, but that doesn't really have anything to do with. That's for cantrips. And then the grave domain cleric doesn't really have anything either. Now, the sorcerer does. So if you have like wizard, if you have levels in wizard or sorcerer and warlock, and you can cast this spell, you can heighten it. So meta magic, 2 meta magic, you can only use 1 meta. When you gain a sorcerer level, you can replace. Because of magic flows within you, you can alter your spells to suit your needs. You gain 2 meta magic options of your choice from the meta magic options later in this class. You can use the chosen options to temporarily modify spells you cast. To use an option, you must spend a number of sorcery points that it costs. So it's just any spell that you have. And again, heightened spell, biggie, that's a biggie. When you cast a spell that forces a creature to make a saving throw, you spend 2 points to give one target of the spell disadvantage on saves against that spell. So you're going to take a disadvantage on the con save, and then you are going to take a disadvantage on all the following con saves to get that disadvantage on strength-based D20 checks. Now, the innate sorcery doesn't work because it says the spell DC of your sorcerer spells, and you can't make this essentially a sorcerer spell per se. Now, a bard could take this spell with arcane secrets, but I don't know if I would take a second level spell with that. Now, so that's a good option as well for this. You could be working with other members of your party to kind of modify that. I gave the example of the Bard of Eloquence working with the wizard to give a subtraction to this. The sorcerer also has wild magic, so you can bend luck immediately after another creature you can see rolls a d20. For a d20 test, you can use your reaction and spend 1 sorcery point to apply a d4, and you can subtract it from that roll. So you can heighten it and you can bend luck. So those are 2 powerful things, and if you happen to have a Bard of Eloquence in the party, they could have put that penalty on them as well. Now, I went through and I found a list of all the spells that trigger a strength saving throw, and there's a lot of really good ones. Ensnaring Strike, Entangle, Dust Devil, Earthbind. If you ever had trouble with creatures that are flying, this is the spell to use right here. A target must succeed on a strength saving throw, which if you successfully hit them with Ray of Enfeeblement, they now have disadvantage on, or its flying speed is reduced to 0. That's a great one. Maximilian's Earthen Grasp, another awesome spell. Windwall is good. Evard's Black Tentacles is fantastic. We haven't gone over that one yet, but it's a strength saving throw. Watery Sphere is another great one that requires strength saving throws. You can trap, and a lot of things where you can trap creatures or ground them. And so this spell is kind of the calm before the storm, per se, before any of these spells go off. So, you kind of need to let your party know, hey, I've got Ray of Enfeeblement, and if we can figure out a way to get it to work, you could use all these other spells and not really have to worry so much about that strength saving throw. So, lot of combos that can be done with this spell now. All right, and, in addition, there is a minus D8 from all damage rolls. That's just a little cherry on the top, so there's like a -4 or 5 to all damage. That's just a little bit of a pudding skin on top of it. All right, that is what I got for everybody today. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody.